Donna. All right, we can let it roll a little bit. Got a few viewers so far. Anyone in the chat, you feel free to comment. Give it a few more seconds there, Mr. Ethan. All right, Sunday Surefire podcast. It's your host this week, Aaron Downtown Brown. I get the co-host with me, Ethan Weaver.
Aaron, how we doing? Week 7.
Week 7 it is, my friend, and I'm excited for a lot of reasons. I mean, we got a jam-packed show, but we're also live for the first time. This is our first live show. I know we thought to just kind of do it on a whim. We'll definitely see how it goes, but I'm definitely excited. How you feeling, I guess, about week 6 and the upcoming show tonight?
Yeah, first of all, we apologize if there's any hiccups along the way. But no, week 7, I mean, this NFL season is going by so fast. But injuries obviously have been tough this year, but looks like the NFL teams are pretty active before the trade deadline here. Amari Cooper going to the Bills, Devontae Adams going to the Jets. So actually, and even Cam Akers going back to the Vikings. So it's pretty active there on the trade market here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the trades. I didn't plan on going too far into detail, but I was kind of curious, just kind of to get your take over those trades we heard about today. And let's start just with the Devontae. I guess actually, let's just bring up both at once: the Devontae Adams to the Jets or Amari Cooper to the Bills. Which one are you more excited about as a fantasy owner?
As a fantasy manager, I think I'm more excited for Amari Cooper to the Bills. The Bills don't have an alpha number one target. I mean, we're talking about Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir. I mean, Keon Coleman may eventually get that guy. I was never a huge Keon Coleman guy coming out of the draft. And through the first 6 weeks, he's shown flashes here and there, but definitely not a guy you can rely on if you have Super Bowl aspirations like the Buffalo Bills. So bringing in a guy like Amari Cooper, I think is a great trade for the Bills. I know Cooper's been struggling with drops, but I know he's probably a little disgruntled. Cleveland didn't renegotiate his contract or give him extra money, even though they're willing to give Ayuk all this money. So Cooper, a little disgruntled. Watson's been absolutely horrible. So definitely a much better situation for Amari Cooper. And I just think he has he's clearly the number one option right off the rip. We were hoping Dalton Kincaid would take a bigger leap this year, but it's not taking off at the moment. And then with Devontae Adams on the other side, I mean, Garrett Wilson isn't a slouch, right? Garrett Wilson's a young upcoming stud himself, who's been kind of going off the last couple of weeks. So if you're a Garrett Wilson manager, you're a little disappointed with the Devontae Adams trade, but hey, maybe it'll create more space for him as the defense has to focus on Devontae Adams. As well. So it'll be interesting. I think Amari Cooper is a better fit for fantasy managers. Devontae Adams, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, they have one of the slowest paced offenses in the league. You have Breece Hall back there. So can Rodgers have 2 wide receiver ones? Probably not. 2 wide receiver 2s, time will tell.
Yeah, no, that's I think it'll certainly be interesting to see. I think anytime a new wide receiver links up with a quarterback, and especially midseason, it's kind of interesting to see how fast they can get on the same page. Let me ask you one question. I actually see we also have our first question in the chat as well. But I guess as far as just to get your final input here, if I ask you from this point forward, who scores more fantasy points this season from week 7 on, Amari Cooper or Devontae Adams?
I'm going to go Amari Cooper just because of target competition. Like I said, Garrett Wilson is still, I think, at this point, the best receiver in New York. Devontae Adams is still great. I mean, it's a tough call because Devontae Adams and Rodgers, they used to have such good chemistry. I'm assuming that chemistry is going to come back, but I'm still very high on Garrett Wilson, and like I said, he was just coming into his own. And regarding the question in the chat, would you wait a week to start Amari Cooper? I think I would, just because of two things. One, it's not Madden. You can't just like plug and play a receiver from Cleveland into the Buffalo Bills, and it's just a seamless transition. You got to run a whole new offense. You got to build rapport with Amari Cooper. They're not just going to kick Keon Coleman to the curb here and give Amari Cooper the Alpha X role right off the rip, in my opinion. And they're playing the Tennessee Titans. The Buffalo Bills are going to make probably quick work of the Tennessee Titans. So I don't think they're going to need to pass the ball all that much. And if I'm Buffalo, you probably ease Amari Cooper in. It's tough just to pick up an offense in such a short amount of time. So I would probably wait a week. But it also depends how desperate you are this week in fantasy football. Obviously, with buys, with injuries, I mean, he's not a bad last flex just to throw in your lineup and hope he has that one long touchdown. But if you can, I would wait a week.
Yeah, no, I'll actually go in reverse. I'll start with the question. So first of all, thank you, Jackie Brockert, for asking that. I think that's definitely a great question to start off the show with. Yeah, and I agree with you too, Ethan. I think the matchup is important this week. With the Bills playing the Tennessee Titans, I think they're favored. They're like minus 440 right now. So anytime, I mean, just in general, anytime a team is that heavily favored, they're probably not going to be passing the whole game anyway. So just for that reason, I don't like Cooper right away. But like you said, if you're desperate, throw him in. I mean, at least it's not like a Baker Mayfield situation where he's got to learn the whole playbook and be the quarterback too. Where at least Cooper's kind of been around for a while. I'm sure he can pick up some things in the offense somewhat quickly. But yeah, to kind of depend on him week 1, I wanted kind of go that route. And then on the question I asked you, it is kind of interesting. It's funny, like Devontae Adams was so safe in his time with Green Bay with Rodgers. I mean, he was like hyper targets, galore as well. But I actually think in this scenario with the Bills offense, I think Cooper will end up having a pretty nice floor. To your point, I think there's going to be boom and possibly boom or bust weeks with the duo of Wilson and Adams. So you might get a week where, I mean, it's similar. Like we kind of say it all the time with like T Higgins and Jamar Chase too. I mean, you could have a big Devontae Adams week. You can have a big Garrett Wilson week too. So I actually, if I'm a Mari Cooper owner, I would love it because you probably are not loving his connection with Watson this year on the Browns. So yeah, I think him linking up with Allen is just gonna go be high flying from there for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I know going from the Raiders to back to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, it probably seems like, oh, it's such a huge bump in value for Devontae Adams. But Devontae Adams, the last couple of seasons, has been getting by on volume. Volume has been the number one thing that's been keeping Devontae Adams as a wide receiver one. And I'm not sure if he gets the volume that he's going to need to be a wide receiver one, considering the Jets are so slow in terms of the way they run their offense in terms of pace of play. And you have Garrett Wilson now, which is arguably the best competition Devontae Adams has in a long time. And that's no shade to my guy Brock Bowers here.
That's funny. I something tells me this will not be the last we hear about Brock Bowers for a while here.
No, definitely not.
He's probably your new Gabe Davis here for me here.
Oh no, please. He's gonna have a much better career than Gabe Davis.
Hey, we're talking to the touchdown
Uh,
owner here in the last 4 years. Lead the league, my friend. Yeah. So, I think, kind of going on with the show, I know we mentioned agenda wise, Ethan, will be a little bit more laid back than normal as we got comments coming in here and there as well. But just kind of want to call out the agenda today. So we did kind of decided this week we want to be a little bit more fluid. Thought the live show was going to be fun, but we're still going to go through our normal DFS plays. We're going to start with our Thursday night game, kind of to start off the week off right here with football. Obviously get your bets in there, but then we also wanted to add in a redraft play as well, where I know a lot of times with DFS plays, we kind of cover a lot of nice plays of the week we like, but specifically to maybe your redraft league, or this week's kind of be more of like you're hungry for players, or you don't know where to go to in your flex spot. So stay tuned for that a little bit later as well. But I think without further ado, we will jump right into the Thursday night matchup. And that's gonna be Denver at New Orleans Saints. So we got your Week 7 preview Thursday night football, and let me tell you, it's gonna be a exciting one. There, Ethan, are you ready for this game?
Yes, I'm ready. As Jackie just said in the comments, it's probably going to be a snooze fest. So I definitely agree with that, especially with everybody hurt in New Orleans. I know Jackie's asking for some captain information, which we're going to get into in just a second. You can see it on the screen here, but the fact that it is going to be a snooze fest, and the New Orleans Saints are just decimated right now without Shaheed, without Olave, Spencer Rattler at quarterback, with Derek Carr being injured. I definitely think that the Denver Broncos are going to handle the Saints rather easily. I think you can easily take Denver -3. I think Spencer Rattler is going to have a very, very tough time against the Denver defense. So I would take Denver rather easily in this game. I guess before I dive into my captain, I'll turn over to you, Aaron, and see your thoughts on how this game's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, you took a lot of the words out of my mouth, and I know Jackie as well said, with they being a snooze fest, I mean, it's definitely gonna be, if you don't have like money on the line, if you don't have some bets, like that's definitely always spices it up a little bit. If you're not a bettor, this would actually be a week I would recommend it. So you can maybe stay awake a little bit
You
longer
need
in
some
the
skin in
game.
the game. Make
You
it
need some
interesting.
skin, exactly. But I guess to kind of start, on that respect here, we'll kind of go over the lines here. I mean, the favorite, as you mentioned, is Denver. They are the away team, but they are favored the 3 points. They think it's going to be relatively close. If you bet Denver money line, they're -148, and then money line for the Saints is a +124. And as we kind of could probably predicted as well, the over under is only 37 points. So that, I don't think we're expecting that much more than that either. So I'm kind of with you. I mean, I know we'll get into it a little bit later too, but yeah, New Orleans is banged up. I mean, even Kamara is he's kind of finding an injury as well. Olave's out. We just heard Shaheed is out. So it's funny, if we rewind the track 1 week ago when I actually went with Rattler as my DFS play. Um, I think I mentioned, hey, he's got weapons in that offense to at least get the ball to. Well, that's not even accurate this week. So Rattler definitely loses some key pieces on offense. And yeah, playing Denver, who's been pretty good on defense this year. I'm actually pretty highly betting towards Denver. So I'll kind of go right into my bet tips with that. So although it's always uncanny how close Vegas is, this is one where I still want to move the spread just slightly. I want to be conservative on a pretty boring game anyway. So I say take the under 40 points. Move the spread just a little bit. I also like Will Lutz field goals made over 1.5. So just saying he's going to get 2 field goals in this game for Denver. That's a -130. So you got 2 favored bets just to get you a very, kind of snooze fest parlay as well. I know I usually say the exciting parlays, but I'm just saying, I'm just recommending just bundling up those two picks. That'll at least get you some plus money at a plus 170. So those are my conservative plays. I think they'll hit fairly well. So Ethan, I'll kind of let you comment on that, and you can kind of go into your tips for this game.
Yeah, no, I like pushing the under up to 40. 37 is such a low number. It's and I hate betting unders. I mean, unders are no fun. Nobody wants to see little no points scored here. But with I mean, Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos offense versus Spencer Rattler and the lack of weapons, I would definitely lean that alternate under that you have. So I like that. And obviously, with the struggling offensive group, Will Lutz is, if they're going to score, it's probably going to be by his leg, because I just don't think Rattler is going to be able to move the ball against his Denver defense. So I think that is a pretty conservative plus 170, and I think that can hit rather easily based on kind of the way we predict this game to go. So I'll parlay my betting tips with my captain, because it kind of goes hand in hand. So as you can see, I mean, I have Rattler under 183 and a half passing yards. I just don't think he's going to get much done through the air. They have very little weapons, like we've talked about. I think they're going to be playing again a lot of two tight end sets with Foster Moreau and Juwan Johnson. They just don't have the personnel on the outside at the receiver position to not play their two tight ends. So they both played over 70% of the snaps last week. I expect that to happen this week. And then, as I said, Denver taking them -3, and I'm taking over 0.5 interceptions. So for Rattler, I think Rattler's easily going to throw an interception. I was actually surprised the line was as favorable as it was, with a -135. So you parlay those three, it's plus 345. I think that could be some pretty easy money. And the reason why I think it's going to be easy money is because I think the Denver defense is going to kind of go off, which is why they're my captain at $7,200. It allows you to play pretty much anybody you want for the big names, especially considering that Olave and Shaheed are out. So there's not a ton of big name options. But when it comes to the Denver defense, they've scored double-digit fantasy points in 4 of the 6 games this year. Spencer Rattler, when he was blitzed last week, was only 4 of 12, and the Broncos bring the 4th most pressure in the NFL. So I think it's going to be a long day for Spencer Rattler. PFF grades the Denver Broncos defense number 2 in coverage, 9th in run defense, overall defense number 4. And they're second in the league with 22 sacks. So I think it's the Denver Broncos at a cheap price of $7,200 for your captain. I think they're in a blow up spot. And when I first looked at the slate, I thought the Denver defense was kind of a no brainer to put in my captain spot, just based on how we think this game's going to go.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we're kind of in agreement in a lot of areas here, and I guess just start with your bets. One note, one little error I see. It's not the -3 is not 1102. It's a 102 -102. So we got an extra one in there. But yeah, I like it's funny, when you bundle those together, the plus 345 is pretty nice. I mean, it's funny. You got 2 rookie quarterbacks facing off against each other. It's gonna have some sloppiness to both sides of football for sure. So,
Sloppy football ahead.
yeah, I mean, you got a rookie quarterback, playing in New Orleans, right? So, I mean, New Orleans crowd's gonna try to help out as much as they can, and then you got Rattler obviously making his second NFL career start too, with no weapons. So yeah, I definitely think kind of leaning towards the interception with Rattler. That's a great play. Denver covering the spread. That's great. Rattler under 183. Yeah, I really can't argue with those two. So I like both of those plays. I mean, who knows? Maybe throw in Will Lutz there too, if you want to get a little bit more dicey with it. And just kind of scrolling over to the left on our DFS captain lineup. We always say, if you've got some skin in the game on the captains, Of course, we know they're 1.5 times more expensive to get in your lineup, but they give you 1.5 times more points. Um, it's funny. I think Ethan, this might be your first time you're going as a defense to be your captain. I think you I think your first timer there, but we're in agreement. I guess let's just start with those captains. I mean, obviously we're not going to argue with each other if they're both our captains. They're a Denver D. Let's just move over to Kamish's pick real quick. What do you think about Bo Nix being the captain for 14,000?
I mean, the way I think this game is going to go, I don't think Bo Nix is going to be asked to do a ton. The New Orleans Saints do not have a great run defense. I think Javonte Williams actually has a decent day. I think Bo Nix is going to be tasked with handing the ball off and making safe throws like he usually does, and just not make those mistakes that keep the New Orleans Saints in the game. So I don't think Bo Nix has a ton of upside, but I do think he's going to do fairly well on the ground. I know the Saints play a decent amount of man-to-man coverage. So obviously against man-to-man, you can run against a quarterback can run against that kind of defense much easier because their eyes are away from the quarterback. And Bo Nix, he does tend to run a decent amount against man-to-man coverage. So maybe he has a leg up in that. He'll get you, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 rushing yards, maybe an extra 3-4 points. So I think if you are going to bet on a quarterback, it's definitely Bo Nix this week. It's so hard in this game because of how messy it's going to be to pick a skill position player on either side. I think Kamara, I would be very hesitant just because I think Denver can solely focus on him and force Rattler to beat them. And I think that's what I would do if I was a defensive coordinator. So it would make me nervous to put Kamara as my captain. And Bo Nix, I mean, he's been distributing the ball fairly well. So like we said last week, if you don't know who it's going to necessarily be, sometimes it's easier just to go with the quarterback. So I definitely don't mind the Bo Nix call because outside the Denver defense, I mean, that might be the not the only logical pick, but one of the picks that has upside.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think in a game that I mean, there's going to be hopefully some offense as far as just yardage goes. Why not bet on the quarterback? I mean, like you said, um, Bo Nix can run it a little bit too. So I mean, it's a relatively safe play as well. If in a game we don't think it's going to be too high scoring, and I would probably bet Kamish probably has, at least one of the defenses in there as well. Maybe the Denver one at least. But you guys also agreed with Foster Moreau. I believe he was the leading receiver last week on the team with Rattler being the second string tight end. So that's pretty cheap in a captain's lineup, 2,800. So I'm not gonna fight you guys too much there. It's pretty good value. And then of course, you already know I kind of like Will Lutz already. At least gets you 6 points. If it's 4 yards or more, he can get 7 to 8 points in your lineup, which he actually may be in contention with a leader in the as far as points go this week.
Yeah, with Foster Moreau, he's logged over 71% of the snaps the last 3 weeks. I think the Denver Broncos are going to put pressure on Rattler. Like I said, fourth most pressure in the league. Rattler's going to have to get the ball out quick. I mean, you're not going to want to throw to your outside receivers with their corners with Surtain out there. I think Rattler's going to have to rely on his underneath targets, Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. I went with Foster Moreau because he's cheaper and he's been on the field and he had a season leading 54 yards last week. So I thought at $2,800, it's very, very little money. And I do think he has some upside because I do think the Saints are going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to throw. Rattler's going to have to get the ball out quick. And I think Foster Moreau could be the benefactor. And with Will Lutz, like I said earlier, I don't think this offense is going to be able to move the ball very well. I think if they're going to score points, it's going to be through Will Lutz. So definitely, I don't mind that call at all.
Yeah, and I think I think I'm sort of snoozing just on this conversation. So I don't know about you that I'm about ready to kind of move on from Thursday night. I hope you all kind of like these tips out here, we can post these after the live stream on our socials as well. And I'll of course also join our Discord. Also DM us if you don't have any, if you don't can't find it on Discord too. We give out a lot of extra nuggets on our Sunday Surefire Discord as well. But I guess with that being said, let's move right into our DFS plays for the week in week 7. So, kind of new format, like I said here on the live stream. Kind of got it all here on one kind of a one-stop shop here. But Ethan, I'll give you your time to shine. You did kind of whoop us in our matchup between you, me, and Kamish. I believe you scored about 154 points last week. I'll let you, kind of have your time to say, told you so. Give your best Kirk Cousins impression
Like
now, and
that?
then yeah, you like that. But go ahead and, like I said, have your time to shine, and we'll kind of jump right into week 7 after that.
Yeah, last week was a pretty good week for me in both the captain's lineup and the main slate. Just to briefly touch on the last week's captain lineup, I chose George Kittle as my captain. He had 34.2 points at a cost of 11,100, so that was a smash with his 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett was my value play. He had 16.5 fantasy points at a cost of 5,400, so that was another hit. And then I was kind of all over that game. I predicted the Bucks to cover, and I told you guys to take the over. So all in all, a good Thursday night for me. And then with the main slate, Montgomery was my bullish buy. He had 21 points at a cost of $6,500. It could have been a lot more, but I think he only had like 11 or 12 carries. The Dallas Cowboys just didn't show up, so they didn't need to pound Montgomery in the ground for no reason. And then the Bucks defense last week at a cost of $2,600. As I said last week, I thought that was a no-brainer, and they scored 17 points. So all in all, a good week 6 for Ethan.
Yeah, no, definitely good. I know you've been on fire recently too, kind of bringing our total score up this year too. So you're definitely been carrying us lately. But I guess enough talking about you. Let's move on to week 7 already. But yeah, we'll kind of go into the usual format. I mean, you kind of see it on the screen here. We kind of got each one of our bullish buy picks that we'll go through first. With mine, yours, and we got Kamish's picks on the screen as well. And of course, we know bullish buy is who are we bullish on week 7, or who's the surefire picks, right? So, we got a couple pictures here on the screen. Ethan, like I said, we're kind of flow this a little bit differently. I'll go ahead and say mine first, so we can also look at Kamish's, and I'll turn it over to you right after there. But I'm right there, right in the middle. You can kind of see a big old number for 8,500. I'm going Justin Jefferson this week, and as we know, Justin Jefferson, it's a pretty enticing or tantalizing, as you would say, Ethan, tantalizing matchup. We got Detroit in Minnesota. That over under is 49.5 points. So yeah, I mean, just that alone, as I said, I usually like to gravitate to those type of games. But one thing I found pretty interesting in this matchup, and like I said, I don't really have to plead a case for Justin Jefferson too much, as we know how good he is. But I also just want to add, Darnold. One metric that I brought up last week with Purdy is, Purdy had the most time to throw in the league. If you can guess, Darnold is number 2 in the league with time to throw, or how much time he's got in the pocket. And I think this is just a couple sequence of events here where if you give Darnold time to throw to a Detroit secondary that can be exposed. They've been known to give up a lot of yards to the air. I mean, he's thrown to the best wide receiver in the game. I think that adds up to a pretty good game for Justin Jefferson. So and then, yeah, as we know, Aiden Hutchinson is out as well too. I mean, if Darnold didn't have enough time before without Hutchinson, he adds a lot of those QB hurries to that Detroit defense. So yeah, all those reasons, I really love Justin Jefferson. I mean, like I said, I like him every week, but I really like him in this matchup in this conference lineup. But Ethan, you can kind of comment on that, and I'll let you give your take on Chuba Hubbard as well as Kamish's bullish buy. But you can kind of take it over from here.
Yeah, it's you can't argue with Justin Jefferson. That game has one of the highest over unders on the main slate. Both defenses are kind of struggling against the wide receiver position, and if it's going to be a shootout, Justin Jefferson is a very solid bet. I think whether you went Justin Jefferson or even Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think those two are worthy of their heavy price tag. So not much more to add on Justin Jefferson. He's a stud. Chuba Hubbard, he was actually a guy I was thinking about talking about. He's just been so good this year. I mean, he's been very efficient. I believe he's averaging, I think over 5 yards a carry. He's a top 10 running back right now in fantasy. And it's like for everybody that thought Chuba was just going to kind of move out of the way once Jonathan Brooks was healthy, I think we need to pump the brakes. I mean, Chuba has been an animal. He's been great. And I think he's in a smash spot this weekend, and I think he does damage against the Washington Commanders. So Chuba Hubbard, I think that's a great call by the commish.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I've always liked Chuba Hubbard as well. And I think we're definitely seeing, the offense is slightly turned around, with Andy Dalton at the helm as well. So yeah, but like just the matchup in general, that's believe it or not, that who would have thought that the Panthers game was going to be the highest over under the week? But
I know.
that's at like 52 points right now with with Jaden Daniels. But the best thing about it is just Washington, they can't cover anybody as well. So on top of it, in the run game, Washington lost Jonathan Allen, their big defensive tackle. So, I mean, they already couldn't cover through the air, and then now they can't really, they won't be able to stop the run either. I mean, shoot, I mean, the over under maybe takes over 60 at that point. So that's a great call by Kamish. But Ethan, let's hear about your Tony Pollard call out right now.
Yeah, so Tony Pollard going against the Buffalo Bills, who have a very hard time against the run. Tajay Spears is most likely going to miss this week. Once Spears left the game, Pollard earned a 90% snap share, 85% of the team's rush attempts, and 92% of the backfield usage. He had a 56% route share after Spears left the game, which would rank fourth best over the entire season. And the Tennessee backfield has recorded the 12th most receptions on the air. So I think Pollard is in line for a heavy dose on the ground. And I think he's going to get a heavy dose through the air as well. The Tennessee Titans are going to be behind. It's going to be the Tony Pollard show. I think he's going to rack up a ton of receptions. And I think he's going to be able to do work on the ground against the Buffalo Bills run defense. I think he's a pretty solid value at 6,300, which is a pretty cheap bullish buy. So I thought with that price tag and the matchup and the fact that Spears is out, I was happy to get Tony Pollard into my lineup. He's been very good over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, my first glance, I kind of hated it, but I guess I guess when you kind of talk it out a little bit, I mean, it may depend a little bit on the Spears injury. If it's just Tony Pollard, he may get some work in the receiving game as well. And then let's face it, I mean, the Titans really have to kind of slow this game down really to just have a chance with the Bills. I mean, their quarterback play is pretty putrid right now as well. So I know everybody's frustrated over there in Tennessee, players and coaches included. So it's like the big elephant in the room that nobody really wants to address the quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean they say it in all words, but but a few. But yeah, I mean I guess it's hard to like it too much where you can actually see me and Kamish both have the Buffalo Bills in the two deep section for our defense this week. So I decided to kind of pay up a little bit more. 3,500 is a little bit more than I usually like to pay on the DFS lineups for defense. But I just like this matchup too much. I think the Bills, they just proven year in, year out. It doesn't really matter what position players they have on defense. They're just a top performing defense in general. And then when you add in to the equation that they're favored minus 440 against the Bills, or I'm sorry, against Tennessee, and they're playing at home. There's just too many factors I love over this. Just want to just smash on the Bills defense this week. And then yeah, just some quick stats there. They've already had 6 picks on the year and 16 sacks. So averaging about 7 points per game. But yeah, most of the league, you're lucky if you only have like maybe 2 or 3 interceptions on the year, and they have 6. So they're very aggressive through the air. You saw that last pick on Rodgers. That was a pretty impressive INT last week against Rodgers as well. So I just really love this game for the Bills. I know it kind of goes against your um, Pollard pick here, but hey, Ethan, I'm just gonna speak for commission and say, hey, like this week it's like 2 versus 1. So let's hear your rebuttal there. But like I said, we both have the Bills, and we can kind of go to your defense after that.
Yeah, I'm not saying Tony Pollard is the absolute best play on the slate, but for the price of 6,300, I do think it is a very solid value because I don't think Tajay Spears is going to play based on the reports I have seen. And as you said, they're going to need to slow the game down. They're gonna need to keep Will Levis out of harm's way and give him easy checkdowns. Utilize Tony Pollard, and Tony Pollard's been scoring fantasy points over the last 2 games. So you can run on the Buffalo Bills. So both can happen. The Buffalo Bills can have a good day defensively, and Tony Pollard can also have a good day. It's not like the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans can score 21 points, and the Buffalo Bills can still score double-digit fantasy points if Will Levis tosses a pick six, has a fumble, or throws just the interception in general, gets a few sacks. So I think both Pollard and the Buffalo Bills defense can both be good plays, even though Tony Pollard is going against a tough matchup in terms of the Buffalo Bills going to be playing way up. Tennessee Titans are going to be trailing probably for most of the game. So we'll see what happens. I'm just projecting a healthy dose of Tony Pollard in both the rushing and the receiving game. But I'll go to my two deep pick, which is the Los Angeles Rams. I like the price, $3,000. They're going against the Las Vegas Raiders without Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers also missed practice again this Wednesday. So if he can't go, it's going to be tough for the Raiders to put a competitive wide receiver group on the field. Their depth chart right now, if Myers is not available, we're looking at Trey Tucker, DJ Turner, and Tyreek McAllister. So it's not ideal for Aiden O'Connell. I think it's going to be a long day in LA. And like I said, I like the price point. I think the Rams, they're averaging double-digit fantasy points, or opposing defenses are averaging double-digit fantasy points against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I like the matchup. I think the Raiders are going to struggle without Adams, without potentially Myers. So I kind of went a little cheap and went with the Rams for 3,000.
Yeah, the Rams that's one that I kind of glossed over. I was, like I said, the 3,000 price point is usually what I kind of shoot for in DFS, so I'm not going to hate you there. And as you said, the Raiders, they got your boy over there, right? But he can't do everything for him. So
And like I said, hey, both things can happen. Bowers can go off, and the Rams can score some fantasy points.
I suppose. I guess you're kind of betting for just a whole bunch of just dump offs, 5-yard passes, get like 10 receptions, in that game. But yeah, I like, it's not one I really, I'm not really gonna choose to fight you over too much this week. Like I said, I like the Bills play a lot more, but I like doing more than one lineup each week too. So if I play around with salaries and I'm kind of looking to save a little bit of money and I want to go cheaper at defense, I definitely will take your advice there and drop down to the Rams at 3,000. Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess you got any final thoughts there?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like it's like, I mean, the Rams scored 10 fantasy points last week against the Packers. The Packers put up 24 points, and the Rams still scored double digits. So it's not like I said, it's not like these defenses need to hold these offenses to under 10 points to score fantasy points. I mean, the Rams can do it in other ways, and the Packers are a much better opponent than the Las Vegas Raiders. So I like the value that the Rams have forced a turnover in 4 of the last 5 games. I think that trend is going to continue, and I think I'm going to get some value with the Rams this week.
All right, yeah. I mean, we'll kind of move on from defenses for now. We'll definitely see how that plays out. Maybe we got some fun told you so's for next week, but we'll kind of move on to the pick six category, and that's the one where these plays are a little bit more better value. You're spending a little bit less, but we're kind of betting they're gonna kind of maybe 3x their value from what you pay to points, right? So let's actually dissect Kamish's picks first. We kind of talk them to kind of a 2-for-1 here in this convo. What do you think about Geno Smith at 5,800, and then our boy Christian Watson for 4,900? Ethan, I'll let you kind of talk on those two, and we can kind of move on from there.
Yeah, Geno Smith. I mean, I believe he's still leading the league in passing yards, and they're going against the Atlanta Falcons, who are probably going to put up some points. So I think at a price tag under 6,000, I actually think Geno Smith is a pretty decent value at the quarterback position. He's been pretty safe. I mean, DK Metcalf's having a great year. I mean, JSN, he's been okay, but he's coming along. I mean, that Tyler Lockett's still being Tyler Lockett, and obviously they have a insane run game with Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. But I think Geno under 6 is definitely a good value. So I like that a lot. And then Christian Watson at a price tag under 5,000. It's hard not to put him in your lineup at that price, especially in a game where they're probably going to have to put up points against the Houston Texans. We were very high on Christian Watson coming into the season. I mean, last year when Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Reed were on the field together, it was Watson who was the leader in target share, first read share, red zone targets. And that has not come to fruition this year, but he did have that long touchdown last week. He's back from his injury. So there's not many receivers that have as much upside as Christian Watson, especially in that offense. So at that price tag, I'm definitely okay putting that upside in your lineup. I think that's a better tournament play than just head to head, just because we all know Christian Watson can give you 20 or he can give you 0. So, but yeah, I don't really have any complaints with either of those picks.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, I kind of look back to my notes I made on this matchup, and it's interesting. I mean, most of my notes were actually favoring Seattle here. I would potentially, even bet Seattle kind of take Atlanta at home. I mean, the only positive note I have in this matchup for Atlanta is that their run defense is pretty decent or pretty decent this year. But it's funny. I brought up slot defense a lot this year, and Atlanta's slot defense is now worst in the entire league. So yeah, I mean maybe another hint there if you're a JSN owner. JSN's going against the worst slot defense in the league. So I like Geno in that respect. I actually like JSN this week. I even like my boy Fant as well. He's kind of getting involved a little bit more. And the Atlanta pass rush is just middle of the pack too. So I think all those things are kind of leaning towards a pretty good Geno week. And then yeah, I think just the matchup Packers Houston, I think just game flow wise, it's going to be back and forth a little bit. So I like, I know we liked him preseason. We were kind of worried when he was injured, but on his return, he kind of pulled through and had that big touchdown. So I kind of want to see more from Watson as well. But Ethan, let's skip over to your pick six players next.
Okay, I'm going to start off with Xavier Legette at a price tag of 5,100. This is pretty simple. They're going against the Washington Commanders, who have not been able to stop anybody through the air. It has, as you said, the highest over/under on the slate. There's going to be some points. I was very, very close to putting Deontay Johnson as my bullish buy, but I decided to kind of go with Leggett because I liked his price point at 5,100 and his upside. I just think at that price point, Xavier Leggett he's out there playing the majority of snaps. He is getting better. He should be getting better week to week. He's a rookie. He's an athletic specimen. So I just think he has immense upside this week in that offense where they're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to put up points. So I wanted a piece of that Carolina passing attack against the porous Washington Commanders secondary. So I thought Xavier Leggett at 5,100 was very tantalizing to get into my lineup.
Yeah, with Leggett, I mean, it's funny. Maybe we'll just go back and forth here because it kind of goes hand in hand with my pick six player. You can kind of see my first guy. I got the Red
Red
Rocket. I got
Rifle, yeah.
Andy. I got Andy Dalton there, 5,200. As I said, I really like this matchup with Carolina. Um, Washington this week. You know, we already talked to with Chuba Hubbard. I just want a lot of pieces in this game. I mean, Andy Dalton. I mean, like I said, just for starters, I mean, it's remind you, it's the 52 point over. Washington sucks with their secondary. You know, I don't even have to say that many advanced metrics there. I think it's kind of common knowledge at this point. I already said it earlier. They lost Jonathan Allen, so whatever pressure they had before, it keeps getting weakened. And Dalton's thrown 7 touchdowns this year in 4 games, so he's kind of over under like 2 touchdowns. Is his trend this week on a week that it's his easiest secondary. So since you have Leggett, I guess I can't argue with Dalton because I think he's gonna be throwing it all around the yard. So Dalton is my pick six player. So maybe they go together this week.
Yeah, I mean, I want a piece of this matchup too. I wanted pieces of the Minnesota Detroit offense as well. So I kind of went the cheaper ends of both. I went Leggett instead of DJ, and I actually went Jordan Addison instead of Justin Jefferson. So kind of cheaping out there. But yeah, as you said, with the projected over under at 52, the points are going to be scored. I think the Carolina Panthers are going to be trailing, negative game script. I think they're going to have to chuck the ball all over the yard. So I like the Andy Dalton call, especially at a price point of 5,200. I think that could absolutely smash and allows you to buy guys like Justin Jefferson and put them in your lineup. So with that, I'll go to my second pick six player, my guy, Brock Bowers, who I think is going to be the tight end 1 overall when it's all said and done this year. He's already the dynasty tight end 1, in my opinion, and I don't think it's very close. So Brock Bowers, I know I have the Rams defense here, but like I said, it's no shade to Brock Bowers. It's just he's the only guy in town, especially if Myers doesn't play. Like I said, he was absent from practice today, Wednesday. October 16th. So Bowers, I think, is going to get absolutely peppered in this game. The Rams are not very good against the tight end position. But like I said, Bowers has 10 and 12 targets over the last 2 weeks. He should see double-digit targets again easily. The Rams have allowed the second most fantasy points on average to the tight end position. They rank 31st against the tight end position. And they're also giving up the 29th most points per game, 27.8. So I do think that the Raiders have a chance to put up some points. But, I mean, to go back to my Rams call, I do think Aiden O'Connell is going to make mistakes just because of the lack of pass catchers. Right now, Bowers currently leads the position in first read targets, total points per route run, and receiving yards per game, 64 at the position. He leads the position in targets of 15 plus air yards and design targets like screens. He's just a massive part of the Raiders game plan. They want to get him the ball. They force feed him the ball. And since 1992, through the first 6 games, Brock Bowers has the most receptions through 6 weeks of any tight end since 1992. Is Brock Bowers at 37, Jordan Reed with 34, Kyle Pitts 31, Sam Laporta 29, Kellen Winslow 27, and Aaron Hernandez 27. So Winslow and Hernandez were both tied at 27, but Bowers is just him. He's a guy I've been high on in the whole pre-draft process. My bold take this year was that he was going to break Sam Laporta's reception record as a rookie, which I believe was 86, and he was going to finish as the tight end 1. Right now, he is on pace to do both those things. I think he's tight end 2 right now. So you won't find too many people higher on Brock Bowers than I am. I know I cheat a little bit. Usually pick 6, it needs to be under 5,500, but I'm sorry. I could not leave the show without talking about my guy, Brock Bowers.
No, you're disqualified. Get off the show. No, it's funny. Hey, and look at you. You brought a stat from the 90s with you tonight. So congrats just on that alone. It actually reminds me, it's funny. I read that there's like a school student that asked their teachers. It said, "Hey, is it okay if I make a reference from the 1900s?" And it was like, oh man, it makes me feel old when you reference it
1900.
that way, the 1900s. But yeah, for the 90s. But no, I mean, in general, there's a couple rules of thumbs that I like to kind of stick to in DFS, and I think you said it that there's a world where you can have the Rams defense and Bowers in your lineup too, because that is that happens a lot. As games get out of hand or you're playing catch up. A lot of times nothing's really working for you. The only things that are maybe over the kind of under over the middle to your tight end or to your running back. That's the only thing working for you. So even in that respect, I like the Bowers play. And then as you mentioned, he's just having a great rookie season as well. Now, however, the one I said I didn't like was the ratio I don't like adding in your lineup is if having Pollard and the Bills. But of course, you don't have the Bills defense this week. That's me. So yeah, like I said, I don't think you break any of downtown Browns rules with having Bowers and in the Rams there. So I can definitely see that world kind of
Yeah,
coming
I
true.
have the hot hand. Pollard's going for 30, baby.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll definitely see. I mean, I think maybe they're just like 30 receptions for like 5 yards. Yeah, who knows?
I'll take it.
Yeah, he'll take it for sure. But yeah, let me just cover my last pick six player. And this is guy, like, I don't even know most people seeing this picture if they even recognize who this is. But for only 5,200, it's a guy that we just saw in a primetime game, Bills versus Jets. And it's Ray Davis for 5,200. He really impressed me, from what I saw in that Jets game. And Jets is, they're a top 10 defense. But going back to strategies, I like kind of stacking sometimes my running backs with my defenses, especially in a game where they're favored. Like I said, I'm going to say for like the fourth time on this episode, they're favored minus 440 for crying out loud. So as we know that, like, when teams are up late in the game, they just got to run the ball, right? And there's a couple things that go with it. I mean, like I said, Ray Davis showed flashes last week. He had 152 all-purpose yards, did some damage on the ground and receiving as well. And James Cook is still dealing with his injury, so we don't know if we'll get a fully healthy James Cook. But here's the thing: like, even if James Cook does make a start, I still like Ray Davis, because if it does get out of hand, I'll say maybe for the sixth time. I mean, Bills are favored 440, so I like sticking Ray Davis in. He can even get a garbage time touchdown as well if they want to, keep Cook healthy and whatnot. So he's kind of my smash pick six play this week in week 7.
Ray Davis was very impressive against the New York Jets. I think if you're the Buffalo Bills organization, you need to they heavily think about having more of not an even split per se, but I don't know, 60-40, 55-45 split with Ray Davis to keep James Cook healthy, right? the Buffalo Bills have Super Bowl aspirations. Why pound your 200-pound running back into the line 15 plus times a game when you have a guy like Ray Davis, who is more than capable of toting the rock, and he showed that against the New York Jets. I mean, if Cook is out again, obviously Davis at 5,200 is an absolute smash in what is going to be a primetime matchup for him, just in terms of game script. The Buffalo Bills, we know they're going to be up, and they're gonna be running the ball with Ray Davis and or James Cook. So definitely like that call. I like that call a lot more if James Cook was not active, but time will tell.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean that pick may even get pumped up a little bit more if Cook sits out another week. But like I said, I think I like it either way. Talked myself into it either way at least. So that kind of wraps up our TFS plays for the week. Like I said, we'll be sure to keep sharing this info, and we'll go ahead and move on to a new segment. We said we want to kind of throw in some redraft advice. Like I said, we're live this week too, so throw in any fantasy questions too. But kind of wanted to pick one topic this week, and this is a fantasy flex play of the week. So hopefully maybe you've picked up some guys like this on your waivers already this week, or you're still searching. But we just wanted to throw out a couple ideas here. So I'll go ahead and kick this one off first here, and that's with my Chiefs, and that's with Juju Smith-Schuster, where I think it's like, oh no, what are the Chiefs gonna do? Once Rashee Rice went down with his injury, but like Juju like rose from the dead.
The
He
corpse
went.
of Juju
Of
Smith-Schuster.
course,
That's
yeah.
my answer.
He got his rebuilt knee from Boston and
Yeah.
in New England, and then he made his way back to the Chiefs, and had a pretty nice performance last week. Really was kind of the player of the game offensively, or at least comeback player for the Chiefs. So, was the main target against the Saints. I say, hey, if you have him, or if he's on the waiver, like definitely pick him up in redraft. I'm a little bit conservative here. I mean, I think he still can get you a good 10, 11 PPR points. I mean, that's even in with a conservative like 5 receptions for like 50 or 60 yards. So I think that can easily happen with it. Just really just him and Kelsey and Kareem Hunt is really the main guys, and with a couple positional players there. But Ethan, maybe give me your thoughts on Juju. Also, anyone in the chat, feel free to ask their redraft question as well. And then Ethan, you can kind of go on to your guy after that.
Yeah, Juju in that Rashee Rice role, he looked pretty good. As we said, the corpse that is Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, he was in New England. The Patriots gave him a healthy contract, and the New England Patriots have one of the worst receiving uh, cores in the league. It's kind of funny. I'm going to be talking about one pretty soon here, but and Juju Smith got cut after the first preseason game from that roster, but he looked great last week. I believe what he had like 130 yards. So just that role in that Chiefs offense is valuable. If Juju can kind of keep this up, I think 10 to 11 points is his floor, especially they're playing San Francisco. They're going to have to put up some points. So I definitely like that call. He's a guy you were able to get on waivers, plug in your last flex, and he's probably pretty safe because, as I said, that Rashee Rice role, that slot hyper targeted role, is very valuable in Kansas City. Talking about another slot receiver, my guy Demario Douglas showed a lot of rapport with Drake May. Finally, Drake May was able to start with Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett just was so afraid to make a mistake. He was so afraid to throw an interception that he wouldn't make any plays. And Drake May was the opposite. I mean, Drake May threw for more touchdowns in one game than Jacoby Brissett's thrown all year. So I think with Drake May at the helm, I think Demario Douglas in this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars is an absolute smash. The Jacksonville Jaguars allow the 7th most PPR points per target to slot receivers. Demario Douglas plays 80% of the time in the slot. We're looking at PFF's 7th worst coverage graded defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars. We just saw Caleb Williams shred them for 23 23 for 29, 226 yards and 4 touchdowns. Um, I think Douglas is going to have a day in the slot. He went 6 for 92 and a touchdown this past week against the Houston Texans. And he has another very good matchup this week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Um, Teams have been kind of shredding Jacksonville all year. I mean, Nico Collins went 12 for 151 and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, 7 for 130 and a touchdown. Similar comparison with right here with Josh Downs, went 9 for 69. I think that's more. I think 9 for 69 is definitely in the realm of possibilities for Demario Douglas. I project him 15 to 18 points. So I think he's definitely a guy you can put in your last flex and feel very, very good about it.
Dang, yeah. I mean, you didn't go the conservative route, so 15 to 18. So, I mean, what are you saying? You think he has like what, like 7 catches, 80 yards, or do you think it's less and he gets a touchdown? 'Cause
I
15,
mean,
that's kind of a steep point range there.
I mean, full point PPR. I expect him to get eight to nine grabs. I expect him to be hyper targeted by Drake May. As I said, Jacksonville cannot stop anybody. So through the air, they're two bad football teams. Two 1-5 football teams playing each other. Demario Douglas is going to get every opportunity to make plays. So I'm pretty bullish on Demario Douglas. If he was playing in the main slate, he'd definitely be in my lineup.
Nice. No, I definitely like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I like to see that Drake May actually, wasn't scared to kind of throw it around a little bit. He got some touchdowns. I mean, so, I mean, we'll definitely see, and I think Douglas is kind of that at least that security blanket. So I like that there. And I see we have another question in the chat, so we'll kind of break away from Douglas and Schuster for a second. Okay, so a little bit of kudos on our props this year, but with Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels really helping a best ball league. But hey, I guess Ethan, I'll kind of turn this to you because you kind of had a big video last week in Dynasty. Say, hey, sell high with Jordan Mason, with him a little banged up. Do you like the rookie over there in San Francisco, or what do you do with the San Francisco running backs moving forward?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thanks, Jackie. Appreciate you listening. It's great. It's great for us that you listen to us, so we really appreciate that. I'm glad you're able to use some of our advice to help you out there. But yeah, I had the video on Jordan Mason to sell him, and then he goes out and gets hurt. He was about to have a massive day too, which was unfortunate. But I mean, Garendo, fourth round pick. I mean, very athletic running back. If I was to start a running back in that backfield, if Mason were to miss time, I'd definitely start Garendo. Uh, Mason has an AC joint like issue. It was weird because at halftime, Shanahan was like, "Yep, Mason's good to go, no issues." He took the first carry of the half and was basically grimacing in pain to the sideline and never stepped back in the game. So it's I would just monitor the practice reports and just keep a close eye on Jordan Mason's status. If he were to go out, Kansas City's not the greatest matchup. I mean, the Kansas City defense, and I'll let Aaron kind of touch on that as he's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so he's dialed into the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think Garendo in a pinch is somebody you can definitely put in there. That Shanahan system, that wide zone blocking scheme. You just need fast, athletic guys like one cut and go. And Garendo fits that bill to the T. He's very athletic, and as you can see, he had that very, very long run last week. So Garendo is not a bad dart throw this week.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, I think Rendo, I mean, it's funny. Maybe pick him up now, as you said. Like maybe when you look at projected points, sometimes guys can kind of hide under other guys. I mean, especially in the week they are playing the Chiefs. But yeah, I just like 49ers running backs. I mean, they just kind of breed them. I mean,
Produce.
even those Purdue's, yeah, CMC gets his, but obviously, I mean, when he's been down over the years, you got Elijah Mitchell's, you got all them that Shanahan scheme, they're gonna put up fantasy points as well. So yeah, if Grando's available, even if you don't start him against the Chiefs, I mean, it's if you gotta droppable guy like maybe Bowers or something. Not just joking there. But if you got somebody that's kind of worth dropping, you can maybe hold them for a week. Might Grandel might be a play here in the upcoming weeks if you're kind of scared of the Chiefs D. Um, but I mean, I also say don't necessarily be totally scared of him. Where I think that there's some games in the fantasy, or I'm sorry, in real football where it doesn't. Sometimes you can kind of just bypass stats and analytics, and when you got two good teams going up against each other, sometimes it can be high scoring. Sometimes it can be very, competitive too. Low scoring as well. But um, I think the Niners can kind of get him involved either way.
Definitely. And it
Ooh,
looks
we
like
got
we
a
have
dynasty
comment.
question.
Yeah,
Yes,
dynasty talk. Kevin Reyes.
Kevin
Yeah.
Reyes. Yes, welcome.
Yeah, so dynasty deep pickups moving forward. So I don't know how down and dirty we want to get.
Yeah,
um yeah, I mean obviously it's a very open-ended question. Um in terms, and we had a buy low video last week. More so, I mean, but those guys were kind of obviously more well-known guys. Like I mentioned Trey Benson. He's a guy that I think you can buy much cheaper now than you could in the beginning of the season. Even like a guy like Blake Corum, all these rookies that essentially start out slow or hurt, like a Ricky Pearsall, even people just kind of forget about him, especially when you have like you're in the thick of things. Everybody's trying to compete for a title. It's redraft season 2. People want points, so a lot of times people kind of forget about these high drafted rookies who are doing nothing. So those I know we talked about Trey Benson. I talked about Blake Corum. Um, but I don't know. I mean, what formats you're talking about? But I think, I mean, in deep dives, guys like even Eric All, the tight end for the Bengals, the rookie tight end out of Iowa, he's been playing 60-70% of the snaps. Gesicki's been kind of been a no-show the last few weeks. So if he can kind of keep working his way up, um, if he can keep getting better week to week. I mean, he's only a rookie tight end, and he's already playing a decent amount of snaps, like I said, and he was hurt in college, so I think he would have been drafted much earlier than he was. So he's a guy I know we talked about before. Aaron, do you have any deeper dive pickups or guys maybe you can target on the cheap that may be up and coming later this year, or yeah, just guys that you see having a bright future that are very cheap right now?
yeah. I mean, some of these guys, depending when you started your dynasty league. I mean, if it's a couple years running, some of these guys get picked up as well. But one that you brought up, Eric All, tight end. I think it's probably next year he's probably starting tight end. I mean, I think he shares time with Gesicki a little bit in Cincinnati, but if I can attach Eric All to Joe Burrow for the next couple of years, I definitely agree with that, Ethan. But just on the tight end round, that's actually sometimes where I like to kind of get a little dirty as well. But if you got an agent, Travis Kelsey, somebody like Jared Wiley. On the Chiefs, he's a little bit deeper. I know Noah Gray kind of gets the playing time right now, but I think they're kind of grooming Jared Wiley as well. He's rookie tight end. So if you're kind of preparing yourself for Kelsey's inevitable retirement at some point, is one. And then I think Vele, Kevin, I think I remember you asked that too. I think you missed Vele, so I might skip that. But Vele's the kind of a big body rookie for Denver, where if Bo Nix kind of grooms a little bit more, Vele can kind of turn into something. Um, I mean, this one's not a deep one, but Tyrone Tracy obviously has really been impressive. He's kind of hot as well, but if you want to, maybe just keep an eye on him, because like if Singletary starts starting again and maybe he's on a competitive team, you can kind of make a play for Tracy as his hype kind of dies down a little bit. But I think Tyrone Tracy is probably the back of the future with the Giants as well. So a couple good deep ones, but yeah, like I would say wait a little bit on Tracy, but maybe make a play for him in a trade as well.
Yeah, because the thing with Tracy and the thing with guys like that kind of pop off as a rookie that were later drafted guys, there's a lot of dynasty managers that look at like a Tyrone Tracy, a guy that they maybe drafted at the end of the third round, or if you have a fourth round, the fourth round, or just spent fab dollars on, which I have Tracy in a league that I was able to pick him up on fab. And what a lot of people do is, I guess I'll use Puka Nacua as an example, right? Puka Nacua was a late round pick by the Rams, and he came onto the scene as a rookie in his first few games and kind of was starting to break out, right? Well, he had a good first couple of weeks. So a lot of dynasty managers will take advantage of those first good couple of weeks. And I know the manager who had Puka Nacua was like, hey, I got an offer for a second. I'm going to flip Puka for a second. I'm essentially getting a guy. I'm basically using a guy that I got on fab, I got on waivers, and turning that into a second round pick. Oh, that's a smash, right? And obviously, fast forward, Puka Nacua was at top, whatever, 6'7" receiver, and you could have got a hell of a lot more than a second round pick. So the Tyrone Tracy manager, I mean, that's why it never hurts to reach out. Maybe they're looking just to get a quick ROI. They just want to get their best return on their investment. A guy that they got in their later round picks or fab, they're willing to maybe get a second or something like that. And I wouldn't want to give a early second for Tyrone Tracy, but if you do believe in him, if you have a projected late second, I mean, or even a projected early third, but right now nobody's probably selling for a third. I know I wouldn't, but sometimes it's good to try to pay now, get that second, because if Tracy starts blowing up, he could be worth a lot more, especially for a guy that hasn't played running back very long.
Right. Right. We have another one. We got Milton in Green Bay. I mean, it's funny when you just break down the Green Bay receivers. I mean, it's cool how they're grooming them over there and at a young age. But Milton, I would gravitate more towards Wicks. Actually, I mean, Milton's kind of buried in the depth chart. I mean, he might play a little bit more now that Wicks is injured as well. But I mean, look at the upcoming years with. I mean, you got the kind of prima Madonna issue going on with Dobbs, and you got,
Yeah.
maybe Watson's approach in his last couple of years of his contract too, where I mean there could be a future where it's like Reed and Wicks in the future in Dynasty too, if you're kind of willing to. I mean, I don't think he's got that high of a price point right now. I know Wicks is kind of the thing I like about it is he's shown enough where I think he can kind of perform. But the cool thing is gambling on some of these Green Bay wide receivers is one of them is going to get a shot at least as a wide receiver too somewhere else when some of their contracts are up. So it's almost take your pick between keep investing in Watson. I mean Reed's kind of untouchable, but yeah, Watson and Wicks is kind of who I would gravitate to in Dynasty. I don't know your thoughts there on Green Bay. You got any thoughts on Green Bay receivers outside of Reed?
Yeah, I mean, Bo Melton, I think he's just kind of a guy. I don't think he's going to do much of anything, especially when you have Reed, Watson, and Wicks there. The tight ends there with Musgrave and Kraft. So just not a lot of room for Bo Melton. But hey, it looks like Kevin is already currently rostering Wicks,
Oh,
so
there
he's
you
good
go.
to go. He's good to go. But yeah, sometimes when it comes to tight ends, like I know a lot of people will say like you don't want to roster too many tight ends. You don't want to bog down your 25 or whatever 20-man roster with a bunch of like lower level tight ends. I know in one of my leagues I kind of did that just because I didn't have a tight end of consequence, and then I was hoping one of them emerge, whether that was Noah Fant, Colby Parkinson, or Tucker Kraft. Luckily, Tucker Kraft is starting to emerge. So in leagues like that where I didn't really have a solid tight end one option, but outside that, I'd rather take shots on if I'm adding back end talent, shots on those running backs, because running backs they only need an injury and there's opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I kind of like both strategies. I actually like kind of getting somewhat deeper with tight ends because you can get them really cheap, and if they do emerge as the starting tight end, you can definitely sell them at a much higher point you got them for. So, I'm sort of a fan with stocking a little bit more tight ends. I know it's not too popular to do, but I've actually found pretty good success with it where you can kind of flip them pretty well. A lot of
Yeah,
them are just waiver pickups.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the format. Like if you're in a two tight end, a 2 point or 1.7 point tight end premium league, yeah. Like I mean, I'm rostering a ton of I'm rostering ton of tight ends. But if you're like in a half point PPR, no tight end premium, or even a full point PPR, no tight end premium, they're just not moving the needle, especially this year. I mean, unless you got my guy Brock Bowers, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, maybe we can maybe field another question. We'll keep I'll kind of look at a couple of my leagues, see if I got another one that comes into mind on the spot here. But any more questions, we'll kind of go for maybe a few more minutes, then we'll kind of have a hard stop here shortly. But I love talking dynasty. Just had to kind of flip the script there a little bit. Um as well. I mean, I guess another guy to keep a. Actually, I did have another one. So I got two running backs maybe to bring up too. Is don't forget actually your preseason guy you liked a lot was Kendre Miller. He's coming off of IR with the Saints. I mean, this is Kamara's last year of his contract as well. So maybe keep Kendre
Yeah, good call, good call.
on your minds there. Where I mean, maybe some people gave up on him, or he's definitely cheap right now for sure. So Kendry Miller. Oh, you want to speak on Kendry? And I got
Yeah,
one more back after that.
Yeah, I was gonna Kendrick Miller's a great call. I mean, I was high on Kendrick coming in this year, and he's much more talented than Jamal Williams or any other back or any other back outside Kamara. I mean, they spent a third round pick on him. He just hasn't been able to be on the field. But guys like that, guys like Miller, those are guys you can right now you can just get tossed into deals as sweeteners. So I think the best strategy is if you want to make a slightly bigger deal, and then you're negotiating and say, oh hey, throw in Kendre Miller and let's get this done. Like okay, and you get basically a free Kendre. So it's hard to sometimes approach the manager, the Kendrick Miller manager, and be like, hey, like what's Kendrick Miller's price? Well, hey, I'll get. Like, I mean, you probably at this point you can probably send just a third for him, but a lot of times some of these guys, it's like they're like, yeah, you know what? I think for a third, I just maybe see what Kendrick can do. So those are guys. It's probably easier to get a bigger deal and have those guys throw in as sweeteners.
I agree. I mean, I think you said it. That's also my favorite way. I like multiplayer deals. I like kind of, things that kind of shake it up a little bit. So I think when you can throw guys in, especially, I mean, obviously, if somebody's interested in your guys, that's the best way to kind of throw extra guys in there as well. So that's my favorite strategy as well. Because if you just want to go out and search for Kendre, definitely take a whole view of the roster and see who else you're interested on the team and don't act like you're interested in Kendre. Go with someone else and then throw Kendre into it, where maybe all along you sort of wanted Kendre deep down. The other back I was going to say is Keaton Mitchell with the Ravens. He's also kind of rehabbing his injury. It was a little gruesome. I mean, but there's a lot of good research out there where at least when some of these bigger injuries happens to these backs, the younger it happens to them, the higher chance they can kind of rebound as well. I mean, you saw that with my boy Dobbins this year too, but Keaton Mitchell, I really like to kind of come back. I mean, you see what Justice Hill is doing with the Ravens in that offense, where I mean, it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of offense with how well the Ravens run the ball. So their dump offs really are effective, and you see what Hill is doing. And I think Keaton Mitchell has a whole lot more talent than Hill. So you can kind of see, like I said, just look what Hill's doing. I think you can almost amplify that, like double it with Keaton Mitchell when he returns. So he's kind of a guy I've got in like a couple leagues that I'm really excited for to make a return to.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell, he was so explosive before that knee injury. So yeah, he's a guy that is probably free out there. I mean, even guys like Kamani Vidal with Gus Bus going on IR, he's getting some opportunities. So maybe you want to swoop in and get him before he has a good game or two. I mean, even guys like Jermaine Burton. I mean, I know we talked a lot about Jermaine Burton for the Cincinnati Bengals, the talented receiver out of Alabama. He came in the league. He just seemed a little immature, wasn't putting in the work, wasn't doing what he needed to do. And Yoshi Voss took over that number 3 role. But I mean, next year, I mean, Jermaine Burton's more talented than Yoshi Voss. T. Higgins isn't going to be there. So Jermaine Burton, you go get him now. It may pay dividends in the 2025-2026 season.
I agree. Oh, it's funny. He's got Mitchell. Sorry, Kevin. It's funny you had Mitchell already. You asked about Tank Dell.
And
So Tank
Addison, yeah.
and Addison. Okay, so yeah, I think we've been Addison's been a sell candidate for us last I think 2 years too. So definitely a fan of selling Addison. Let's talk Dell for a second. So Dell's one what I like, but it kind of depends on your roster construction. If he's kind of like your last the the leagues I like Tank Dell on is if he's kind of like your last flex option where it's like you're okay having him kind of boom one week, but you're not depending on him as your main receiver. I don't mind him in there, but I would say if people are they got interest in Tank, this is a good time to trade him. With Collins out, so you might be able to get even more value out of a trade. But if you make a trade, try to find somebody with a stable, target or snap share, than Dell, because Dell is very talented. I do like him, but I think you got to maybe make a trade to someone that has a little bit better floor than Tank Dell.
No, I agree. Tank Dell right now, if I could get value for him, if I could use him in a package and upgrade to as you just put, Aaron, a more stable asset, I'd do that. I don't think Tank Dell obviously blew up as a rookie, but I mean, they went out and signed Diggs. Nico Collins is the alpha dog in that room. And you also have Dalton Schultz, who's a serviceable tight end. There's just not enough targets to go around for everybody to be relevant. So Tank Dell is going to be boom and bust week to week, especially when Nico comes back. So if you can sell Tank while Nico's on IR and get decent value for him, because if he does have a couple of good games here, I would like to move off of Tank to get a more stable asset. I mean, and if it all depends on kind of what your roster construction is, the starting settings, like how many starters you have, if you're in win now mode or you're kind of tanking a little bit. Because if you're tanking, I mean, I would love to move Tank Dell and a piece for like a guy like Rashee Rice, right? I would love to try to buy Rashee Rice on the cheap right now if I wasn't contending. I mean, even if I'm contending, and if I have a few extra pieces, I can kind of live without. Rashee Rice is a guy I'm very high on, so I try to get him. But yeah, I would definitely move on from Tank to a more stable asset, just a guy that you're going to trust more week to week in your lineup.
Here's an interesting. I'll kind of rattle off one or two here. Tank Dell or Brandon Ayuk?
Ayuk is not even close.
Tank Dell or Zay Flowers?
Zay Flowers right now, he's the number one in that offense. Well, in an offense that throws 15 times a game, but I think right now you have to go Zay. I think he just has more upside week to week, because I think both have volatile volume.
I got a fun one. We'll go for running back. So Tank Dell or David Montgomery?
I
Dynasty.
mean, I right now I think you have to go David Montgomery. David Montgomery just signed an extension. David Montgomery has been awesome this year. He's so safe. As long as he's healthy, he's a walking 15 to 20 points. He's been more stable than Gibbs this year. I mean, he's just so good in that offense. I actually just actually back-to-back years in different dynasty leagues, I sold off Montgomery for a last year was for a 24 first, which turned into Rome Odunze. So I was very happy with that return. And I just actually moved on from Montgomery in another one of my leagues for a 25 first this year, which is a very, very deep running back class. So I'm okay pressing the reset button, because this is probably the last time you're going to be able to sell Montgomery for a first. I mean, right now people see Montgomery, they see what he's doing out there. These win now teams are willing to pay first round picks for producers like David Montgomery, where the second he gets hurt or the second he starts having some down weeks or Gibbs maybe takes over, his value kind of goes down with that, because like we've been talking about few episodes, is right now, I mean, in the dynasty landscape, value is so week to week these days. It's like insane. I mean, you have a good week, you skyrocket, and it's like if you have a down week, it bottoms out. It's like the crazy stock market that we're playing in right now. It's almost like redraft where it's just so volatile week to week in terms of dynasty value. It's kind of crazy. So, I mean, if you can get value for David Montgomery, he's definitely a guy that I'd be willing to move off of, especially if I'm not win now. But win now, he's hard to part with right now because he's just been so good.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, even if you're not, that's why I wanted to throw a curveball at you, like at a running back. I mean, they obviously have a little bit shorter lifespan, but David Montgomery just signing that deal, um, like I said, I don't think it's definitely want to be a 1-for-1, like a Dell Montgomery, um, deal. I think Montgomery's just been too stable. But I was just trying to find a couple stable guys that maybe you can make some things happen with. Montgomery's getting a little bit up there in age, so yeah, I mean, I think that's a hopefully it gave you some good ideas of a couple guys to target there if you got Dell.
Yeah, Dell's interesting. He's interesting because I mean you have some of the community that absolutely loves him. You have people that are like, yeah, he's just like me. I was never a huge Dell guy, and like right now, I mean, obviously with the addition of Diggs and Nico ascending as the alpha, it just not enough targets to go around. He's a guy that's just so volatile week to week. But um, we'll see if he can kind of if he can hit a hot streak now that Nico is on the shelf.
I agree. All right, guys. Well, like I said, I think we said we'd field a few more questions, but we definitely thank everyone for okay, we got one more. We'll do one more. It'll be a floor trade for Dell, for instance, if I need a running back. Okay, so the question is if I need a running back, my running backs are Kamara and Gibbs. So you're saying if you want to trade Dell and you want to target, that's what I was trying to do. I wanted to try to find you kind of a running back that wasn't as highly valued in Dynasty, um, but somewhat stable, kind of middle of the road. I
I
kind of like
mean,
Montgomery, but
okay. I mean, could you? I don't know what his status is this week, but could you sell Dell for like a Brian Robinson? I mean, I was never a huge Brian Robinson guy, but I mean, that offense is cooking right now, and Brian Robinson's been awesome.
would yeah, Brian Robertson. I mean, even what you said last week, where um, or your guy this week with Pollard, could you get like Pollard and a piece
Oh
for
yeah,
Dell?
if you need a running back this year, if you're trying to win, I mean, you can move if you can get Pollard plus for Tank. That's I mean, Pollard's going to be the guy this year, and he's been good, and he's going to be good for the rest of the year.
Mm,
Like who was I saying to move off of for Pollard? Oh yeah, Jordan Mason last week
Jordan
or
Mason.
before he got hurt. If you could move on from Jordan Mason to a guy like Pollard, that's going to actually help you in the fantasy playoffs. But I don't know. It's tough because I don't know how much. I don't know how the Tank
He's got
Dell.
Pollard. That's hilarious. He's got Pollard on the same team.
Uh,
That's nice. That's
great
hilarious.
minds, yeah.
Yes.
No, it all depends what the how the other manager feels about Tank Dell because there's people that absolutely love Tank and there's people that don't. So I guess it depends who you're trying to sell him to. But I don't know. You're not gonna get you're not gonna get one obviously one of these top end dynasty running backs. But I mean,
What about my boy Dobbins? Can you make a play for Dell for Dobbins or
yeah,
something?
I mean Dobbins, I mean, because he's a volatile asset, right? I mean, some people may be looking to get off him because obviously his injury history. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, can you buy Devon A Chain low? You know, he's been struggling last few weeks. Tua is going to come back. You know, I mean, obviously you'd probably have to add a little bit to Tank Dell, but um, I'd wait for a
Yeah,
Tank Dell blow up game. But
right. This was kind of his coming out party again, where hopefully it kind of goes. You really want him to like go nuclear first, like these like 15-point games is kind of like that's what he should be getting with Nico out, right? Because with him, he was only getting like 8, 7 to 10 points a week. So you really want him to kind of go nuclear and then see how high you can sell him.
I mean, it's risky, but even a guy like, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson with Drake May at the helm. I mean, if that offense starts to cook a little bit, Ramondre Stevenson is a very talented running back. I wouldn't want to do it straight, but like I would probably want a little more on top of Ramondre for my Tank Dell, just considering that Ramondre he was hurt last week. But I mean, it's kind of nasty because the Patriots are absolutely awful. But I think Drake May sparked some life into them last week, and I mean Ramondre Stevenson, when given the opportunity, he's going to be an RB2. I'm just kind of deep dive at some of these like kind of lower end running backs that you can probably get um, for Tank Dell. Um, but that's why I kind of like Brian Robinson just because Brian Robinson,
Yeah,
I think, is a very, very, very stable asset and a really good offense right now. Um,
yeah,
but I,
that's a good
but
equivalent.
yeah, I just reach out to, I just send some feelers out there to the managers in your league.
Exactly. Yeah. Put them on the block. Maybe hunt out a couple of those guys and see, see how the conversation goes. I'm a big fan of like, sometimes it can get a little drawn out, but I kind of like chatting a little bit first sometimes because you don't want to show all your cards and just sending a trade offer right away. So if you got a league that maybe the people in it. I know Ethan. You know that very well. We've had long conversations even before
Yes.
we were podcast buddies in leagues where we would be chatting for hours, it seemed like, about trades. So yeah, so maybe I would recommend, maybe sparking a little conversation, see where see where it goes. But I guess with that said, I mean, thank you everybody. We'll definitely, we stay in contact with everyone on our socials, our Discord. Found us on YouTube already. Next time we'll do YouTube, Instagram. We can kind of get Facebook going a little bit. Wanted to get some feelers out this week too. But yeah, definitely keep hitting us up, and we'll keep answering questions. And I kind of liked how the flow went this week. So we mixed in a little fantasy advice. We got our DFS plays. We mixed in a little bit of betting. So definitely, if you liked it, try to give this live video a like, and we'll try to do this a little more often moving forward. But I guess with that being said, we'll still sign off the same way with a good old peace.
Thanks, everyone.